My name is Jer, and today I'm back with part 2 of my Book of Answered Prayers. In my last video, I talked about my Book of Answered Prayers, and this is a book that I started back in 2020 because I just wanted to record like different things that God had done for me, ways that I had walked by faith, and how God had answered some very specific prayers for me. So I'm back with part 2 today, and I want to talk about some other things that have happened to me that are just amazing. So back when I was in high school, I did have a Mercedes as a graduation gift. My parents bought it for me, and it was the car that I wanted, and I was very happy with it. But that was in 2012. So by the time maybe 2017 rolled around, I was ready for a new car. And so I had been looking at these cars, these upgraded Mercedes, for like a couple years, and I was just ready for a new car. But I didn't know how I was going to afford that new car because of the amount of money that I was making. I had just graduated from college, and I was in my first full-time job, and I just did not have a lot of disposable income, especially for a recurrent payment. Like, I was still living with my parents. I had no idea where this money was going to come from. In April of that year, I wrote down what I was praying for, that I wanted to get a new car. I wanted to get a new Mercedes, and I asked God to bless me with it. And that summer in July, it was either June or July, I had read this book by Steve Harvey called Jump. And so I would listen to a lot of his motivational speeches, and he was saying, and also I failed to mention that I had started having problems with my current car. So it would just turn off sometimes. Like, there were just, I would always have to get stuff fixed on it. And so I just wanted something new or that was gently used so that I would stop wasting so much of my money trying to get this car fixed. Like, sometimes my car wouldn't start. And I remember Steve Harvey said, you're praying for God to bless you to make it to work in your unreliable car that you have now, instead of just asking him for a new car. So I started asking God for a new car, and then I went to, by faith, I cleaned out my car. I took all of my CDs out. I took everything out of my car and made sure that I kept it clean, because I was just telling myself, I'm about to get a new car. I need to be prepared. It was April 2018 when I prayed for the new car, and then it was June or July 2018 when I was listening to Steve Harvey, and he said to pray for a new car. And so in July 2018, I went to the dealership and I started looking at cars. I saw this car that I absolutely fell in love with. I absolutely fell in love with this car. I test drove the car. It was, I mean, I was in love with this car, y'all. Like, it was a Mercedes. It was a huge upgrade. It had like the, not even tan, but like it had beige seats. It was gray on the outside, like dark gray on the outside. I had wanted a car that color when I was in college. So like 2013, I saw a car that color, and I was like, my next car needs to be that color. I had been looking at some other cars online. This Mercedes, y'all, it was in 2014, and so it was 4 years old, but it only had like 15,000 miles on it. And if you don't know, the average amount of miles that you drive per year is like 12 to 15,000. So for it to be 4 years old, and it only had 15,000 miles on it, I was like, okay, probably was an older person that had this vehicle and that didn't drive that much. So I took pictures of the car and everything, and I was so in love with that car. I ended up not getting that car at the time because I was in between jobs, and also I didn't have any credit. So one of the people at the dealership told me about this program for people that had graduated college within the last 2 years that were working in their field, and Mercedes would finance you for like up to $50,000, something like that. So in August, I was going to like this 21 days of prayer at my church, and after church I decided to go to like this breakfast spot that I really liked. And when I was trying to leave, my car would not crank up. So my car had got to the point where I just didn't know when it would work, when it wouldn't work. And I had to actually borrow one of my parents' cars sometimes to like get places. I ended up I got a job offer at the local university, and it was in my field and I was super excited about it. So I went back to the dealership and I told them what was going on. Like, hey, you know, my car has stopped working. I'm in my mom's car right now. I had looked online before I came and I noticed that the car that I really, really liked wasn't there anymore. And that car, I think, might have been like $26,000 at the time, $25,000. And I had saw some other cars online, but they were like $40,000 for like the same model, the same year. They were like twice as much as the other car. They were like over like $40,000, like $45,000, somewhere around. So I told them about the car. I think I might have even showed them a picture of the car or something like that. And they were like, oh yeah, that car is still here. It's right there. And they actually marked the price down. So I think it might have been, I can't remember what the original price is. I'll have to go back and look at my picture. They marked the price down to $20,000. And I was like, okay, well, that's nice, but I don't know if I'm going to get it approved because I don't have any credit. Y'all, I did not have a credit card. I didn't have anything. I did not have any type of monthly payments except like Netflix. Like, I did not have any payments, okay? So I ended up getting approved. I had not even started at my new job yet. I got a new car. Well, it wasn't brand new. It was 4 years old at the time, but it looked absolutely brand new. It was a Mercedes, and I got it for $20,000. That is unheard of, because even I looked before I made this video, the car is still valued at like $35,000 right now, and it's 2023. It's 9 years later. So yeah, that was a huge blessing. No one else had bought the car, y'all, for a whole month. The car was, it was like a month and a half actually. The car was still on the car lot, and I was able to get that exact car. I was 23 years old. Or was I 24? I was 24 years old, and I got this beautiful Mercedes. And I was also worried about like the monthly payments, but I was able to make the monthly payments because I had this new job. I didn't have to worry about my old income. I needed a new car. Not only did God bless me with a new car, he blessed me with the exact car that I wanted, which is a luxury car, and it was only $20,000. And when I would, like, someone recommended to me to look into getting a Honda Civic, so I looked up Honda Civic, and it was the same price as the Mercedes because it was like $20,000. And I was like, you know what? Let me just go ahead and get the Mercedes. Like, I got a Mercedes for $20,000, and it's absolutely beautiful. I still drive the car to this day. I love my car, and yeah. So speaking of starting a new job, I started a new job at the university in August of 2018, and I absolutely loved my position. I had a great position. I was basically the manager of our resource library. There were different materials in there for preschool teachers and the directors of preschool programs. So I just really enjoyed being in that role because I was allowed to be creative. It was a low stress role. I didn't have a lot of stuff that, you know, really stressed me out. But there was another position at my job that would allow me to make more money. And so it was in the same department because I was the only person in my role, and the other people I worked with were in what we call a trainer position. And so while I'm managing the resource library for the teachers, the students, and the directors, they're actually training the teachers, the students, and the directors. And what I mean by training is they would do workshops like 3 to 4 times a month, and they would be able to create their own workshops. And it was basically like public speaking. So I was interested in that because I would be able to get my own closed off office, because I had an office, but it was kind of like a shared space because so many people would be coming in and out, and I really wanted to have my own space. In April of 2019, my boss did my performance review with me, and I asked her if there would be any other positions, any trainer positions coming available soon. And she said, well, since it is like a grant funded program, we have to write for or request those positions, and we write for the different programs and positions every 2 years. And so they had just hired some new people in like October of 2018. So she said that they wouldn't be hiring again for those until fall of 2020. I was like, okay. So I walked away from that conversation and I prayed about it, and I was like, I don't know how it's gonna happen, but Lord, I'm believing you to bless me with that position. So, and I wrote that down in my journal. Another thing is that my boss told me whenever a position does come available, I will be the first person to know. At the end of May, they announced that one of the trainers had gotten another offer at another job, and she was going to be transitioning to that role. And so after the meeting, my boss pulled me to the side and she was like, there's a new position available. I still had to go through the interview process and all of that. Also, during this time, I was in the process of purchasing my first house. And I know that based on the numbers that they've provided me with, I have to get this job because I need the pay. I used that as leverage in my interview when I was negotiating my salary. But they were so supportive and they were very understanding, but I still had to go through the interview process just like everybody else because everybody deserves a fair chance. And so I had to have 2 interviews, and I did my absolute best, y'all. And I had to interview in front of all the other trainers, but I ended up getting the jobs. I got my job, y'all, like a week before I bought my house. And so it came like in perfect timing. And I was like, wow, like God really came through for me. So now, since he came through for me in that situation, I know that when I pray for something and maybe there's not even a position available, I'm like, well, God did it before. Like, I have faith that he'll do that for me again. Another answered prayer I have is going on vacation. So on September 9th, I was driving down the road and I was like, if I can go anywhere in the United States right now, where would I go? And I wanted to go to South Carolina. And I was like, it would be really cool to be able to go to the beach because I was actually finishing up my grad school program and my business was kind of slow at the moment. So your girl was on a budget. And I had prayed. I was like, Lord, I would really love to be able to go to the beach, but I don't